Hello there, Geek Collective, and welcome to Geeks Plus Comics, more than just your average geeks. And we are here with another episode of Let's Talk Comics. And I am sitting down with a very special guest today to talk about a comic that they've got that is currently on Kickstarter. A man who might actually be rivaling our other guest, Amit Tischler, for the most epic hair to ever appear on the talk show. I thought Amit's was pretty much a guaranteed winner, but tonight's guest very well might be challenging that, I must say. But a massive shout out to our guest tonight, Todd Black. Todd, thank you so much for coming and joining us tonight. And thank you so much for reaching out to us to talk about your comic and giving us this opportunity. We greatly appreciate it.
I'm always looking for new shows to be on. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about Tokyo Blade Detectives tonight. Also, one small correction. I do not challenge for the best hair. I simply have it.
Oh, dang. We're just coming right out. It's like, we are claiming the best hair. Dang. All right.
Okay. What you're seeing right now is not even my final form. So, you know.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, there we go. Mr. Todd Black has called the reigning best hair on the show. So there we go. I mean, I can't say much against it. I have no, I've got, no skin in the game here. My hair is like...
Hey, you got good facial hair. I can't grow that. Like, that's my weakness hair-wise. I can grow it all on the top of my head, but with, like, a beard or a mustache, I can't even get it, like, thick enough to try, so...
Well, that's because it's all went to your head, apparently. That's because it all just kind of, like, went upwards and into your head, because that's... You've got, like, an epic mane going on.
I do. Thank you.
You very much do. So, Todd, for anyone who's checking out the show and has no idea who you are, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself? Who are you? How did you get into comics? And why Tokyo Blade Detectives?
All right. Well, I've been making comics and novels for over 10 years now. And my origin story is simply that I have, ever since a really young age, it's just always been having story ideas in my head. And I would just say, like, what would I do if I was in the story, or what's my take on this story? And eventually, when I got to like high school and college, I really started writing a lot of things out. It's just something I really like to do. I went to college for video game development, but I specialized in the writing side of things. That was much more fascinating to me. I got A's in all writing courses, obviously, but I got F's in programming, so it all balanced out. Yeah, I can write everything but code. I have limits. But at the time, when I was at DePaul University in Chicago, Illinois, I went to C2E2, the big Comic-Con that's there, and there was a panel called Making Comics the Marvel Way. One of the people on there was Matt Fraction, who at the time was working with Marvel on the Iron Man series, which I really, really liked. And so at the time, I had been pondering, trying to write comics, and I went, I'm a guy who has a comic idea. What do I do? And he looked at me and goes, look, if you want to write comics, go find an artist and write to comics. Okay. Sounds simple.
I was going to say, yeah, that's very straightforward sounding.
Well, I mean, sometimes you need that. You just need that kick in the pants. Of course, as I was joking, 2 years later, I finally started doing it because you need money to make comic books.
Yes.
And I didn't have that as I was a college student. So, money was going elsewhere at the time. But I probably started making comics with a superhero series called Guardians. I made 20 issues of that, and then I started to branch out into other genres. I've done sci-fi fantasy, Disney Pixar style. I've done wrestling comics and crime noir. And eventually, I got to the one we're talking to tonight, Tokyo Blade Detectives, which is my tribute to everything anime. And you asked me why Tokyo Blade Detectives. I love anime. I grew up on like a lot of the classics: Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Dragon Ball Z, Code Lyoko for all you Cartoon Network fans out there. That was a great one. Oh, sorry.
Nope.
Yep, theme song started playing in my head. Gotta stop that. Don't you hate when that happens? You like talking about the show and the song like instantly pops into your head.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
But, so Tokyo is like my tribute to everything anime while putting my own spin on things. And we're 9 issues in, and we're with this current issue. We're kicking off volume 3, so it's a perfect time to catch up on everything. especially to all the listeners out there who have never even heard of me or Tokyo Blade Detectives. Totally fine. I got you covered. I hope you got me covered by supporting me. So, I am the kind of writer who won't stop writing until there isn't any more ideas in my head, and I've got plenty to last me for quite some time. So I love to write. I love to write good characters, good stories, like having fun with the genres that I love, and it's just a thrill for me to do it.
Oh, awesome. And that's definitely something I got out of Tokyo Blade Detectives. It definitely is, like, first of all, it is a complete love letter to manga and anime and everything that is Japanese. It's definitely a love letter to that sort of stuff. You can tell that that's obviously the inspiration and the passion behind it. Absolutely. Um, but you can tell that honestly through the writing, you're having a lot of fun writing it as well. You're having a lot of fun
Yeah.
putting this stuff down on the page and getting that out there, and just playing with the idea of this kind of futuristic set Tokyo with the different gangs and different factions all facing off with each other, and our protagonist kind of stuck in the middle. It was a really intriguing story to actually delve into. I wasn't
Thank you.
Because when you sent it out to me, like, I had no idea. I'll hold my hands up. I had never heard of it beforehand, so I'm like, I don't
Totally fine.
know what I'm getting into. And I started reading it, and I honestly thought, I hope this is good, because there's so many Kickstarter comics. You're like, you check them out, and it's like they're like, oh, this is not a good story. This is not well done, and I'm like, please be a good story. And I read it, and I got completely swept up in the story right off the
Yay.
bat. Like, I absolutely enjoyed it. This was a really interesting and intriguing tale. Was it all? Sorry, I've got like three questions in my head at once here. So was it all ideas that you kind of just came with, or what was the inspirations for the kind of futuristic Japan for it? And the one of the major factors, especially, we set them up in the first volume, and in the second volume they become more prevalent as well, the factions. And then also as well, the major story point of the whole thing, not to give away spoilers because it's in the first few issues, of this being a world without guns, and a world where guns have basically been banned, and then all of a sudden they start to come back into play again.
Yeah. So this is, for me, one of the funniest things about the story. Despite me being an anime lover for years, I never really thought about doing an anime comic. It just wasn't something I had in my head at the time. So I was on Facebook one day, like years and years ago, and you know those like memes that are like, well, first letter of your first name, what's your yada yada yada, and you have to like find the random scattered words.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
was on Facebook, and one of them that popped up in my timeline was, "What's your anime title?" And I was like, "Okay, that sounds fun." So it was first letter of my first name, Todd, Tokyo. Uh, First letter of my last name, Black, Blade. The last letter of my first name, uh, Todd, so D, so detective. So it's Tokyo Blade Detectives. And at the time, Deadpool, the first movie, had come out. And one of the lines of the movie was, Deadpool sounds like a franchise. So I kind of liked the title, so I went, Tokyo Blade Detective sounds like a franchise. Put it in the comments, and I walked away. I was done. That was it. There was nothing going on in my head. And then a couple hours later, I get back onto Facebook, and I see I had a reply to a comment, but I didn't recognize the person's name. So I'm like, who is this person? And it was from that meme. And it was actually, the guy said, actually, that does sound like a franchise. You should do something with it. Okay. So I looked at the title, and I was like, okay, what does this title say to me? Because the name means something. In any anime, it always means something. And so I went Tokyo, Japan, obviously. Detectives, modern day. Blade, that threw me off. Because why would there be swords in the modern day? Why would these detectives be wielding blades in the modern day? And then the line hit my head. In a land where guns are outlawed, only the blade can rule. And when I said that line, the floodgates of my mind opened, and I had like this wash of ideas. It was like every anime reference and influence I had just came in. It's like, okay, here's how you should do it, and here's what the sword should look like, and here's how the characters should be. I had to, and I never really do this, but I had to go into Microsoft Word and I had to write down, I had to type up everything that I had because I started thinking about the factions. I thought about the laser swords that I thought about because it had to be cool blades because this is like futuristic
Yeah,
anime
it's
this time.
futuristic. It has to be a laser sword, of course.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Can't call it the other thing, so it's laser swords. But and I just started writing it down, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is actually a lot of fun. My problem was I couldn't do it right then because I had some other comic series I had to go finish. But eventually we got to it, and then the next struggle was simply finding an artist who could do a really good anime style.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted a new person on this because I had one dedicated artist I was working on a bunch of other projects, and I didn't want to tie him up with this. So I found a Lam Vuvan on Facebook of all places, and he crushed it, like especially with the sword movements as you saw in all the action pages. And once things got going, like they didn't stop, and we put every single issue on Kickstarter. We funded every single time. I've been blown away by the support for it, both on Kickstarter and at Comic Cons. And for those who are just wanting the overall picture of it, this is a futuristic version of Japan about 200 years in the future. Country's been burned to the ground by a war, rebuilt with technology, and to stop the madness, they make a law that no one can break. No guns allowed. But that creates a power vacuum. And so they make laser swords to fill it, and that gives rise to 5 factions who are trying to overthrow the government. And in the midst of all this is a 16-year-old detective named Miko who is just trying to survive day to day. And in the first volume, without going into too many spoilers, she gets a case that's going to change everything. And our dear host has already teased what that thing might be about. So,
Yeah, well, of course. You
yeah,
can't.
well, yeah, but no, it's fine. It's not that big of a spoiler. So, but each arc is something special. But in tribute to another anime I love, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, every story, every character we meet is going to tie into the grander scope of the story. There will be certain crescendos that just completely change the paradigm of what's happening in Tokyo and Japan as a whole. So whether it's with the factions, whether it's with certain other characters we meet, everything is connected and everything builds towards a crescendo. Then that crescendo will happen. And then we have a new status quo. And then something else is going to happen. Like, I've thought a lot of issues ahead with this series because I love this series of mine and I want to keep it going for as long as possible.
Well, that was actually one of the things I was going to ask. Like, you're talking about building to a crescendo. Like, do you have an end game in mind for it? Like, kind of say, like, this is how and when we're going to finish it? Or is it just as long as the ideas keep flowing, you're just going to keep going?
As long as the ideas keep flowing, like, I have made it clear that this is a true ongoing series. Like, I know what's going to happen on issue 25, which is going to be one of our big status quo changers. So that would be arc 7. I know what's going to happen a little bit beyond that. And if I go 100 issues, then I go 100 issues. Or if I have to stop at 50 for whatever reason, then I'll be happy with that. But this is one of those stories, not unlike a good anime, where you can take it in so many directions that the stories want to keep flowing, and you don't want to stop. So I will continue making this for as long as possible.
Absolutely. And I think that's awesome because so often it's like a case of, like, a good story's coming to an end, but I like the kind of free flow of this, of just as long as you've got the ideas for it, just to keep it going. Because I think there's definitely potential for the world there, because, even if the world is changing the status quo, you're building up enough of a world round it of you can explore that further. And it does feel very kind of old school anime in that sense of, like, the world's just, it's expanded, and I'm like, we can go over here and explore this if we want, or we can just not. And it's just, you just have to know it's over there. And but that's awesome. That is
And one of the beautiful things is that even in the very first cover for the one we used for both issue 1 and volume 1, there are teases strewn throughout it. And some people, I'm pretty sure, don't even notice one of the teases because there's a question about, why Japan is the way it is, which we will get to eventually. But there's also the question of how do they enforce a gun ban?
Mm-hmm.
And I know the answer. And it's not what you're expecting. So I can't wait to get to that point, because once it happens, everybody's gonna be like, "Oh crap, that's why. Oh, that's bad." So There's a lot of teases about the future, even in the very first issue and volume. So this is absolutely a story that once you get invested, you're gonna want to see like, oh, where does the next arc take us? Where does the next arc take us? It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Awesome. I'm really intrigued to see where this story goes, because what you've done so far, like even just in the first volume itself, like before I'd even gotten into the second volume, there's already such an expansive world there.
Yeah,
And you've also created such really engaging kind of like protagonists for the story as well.
yeah,
And it's like and it's a really interesting twist on the whole like, old man, young girl dynamic of like kind of like the main protagonist, which I always say it's one of those tropes in comics and movies and shows, but like it's one of those tropes that we're okay with because everyone always seems to enjoy it and it always seems to tell a really good story. Um, I really like the dynamic of it in this book, and I love the fact that even coming out of volume one and then into volume two, we really start to tease their backstories as well. And we really
yeah.
start to tease who they are, where they come from, what their connections are, and I won't go into that too much because there is some spoilers for that if you've not read the series up to this point. But it's like I'm really impressed with how much you've managed to get into just those first two volumes. Like those
Thank you.
first eight
And
issues, like there's a lot of storytelling and world building, and but it doesn't feel cramped.
no,
It doesn't feel overstuffed, but at the same time, I'm not left feeling like, yeah, but you could have done more of this. I'm like, no, you've managed to find this really great balance with it. And I just wanted
that,
to
that
compliment you on that and putting that out there because it's a really hard thing to do.
it was something that I felt important in the first one, where there is a case of that again will change everything in the first volume, but I also need to establish, why Miko, why this world, what's going on. We had to establish the five factions without exposing all of them, and I really wanted to show that this version of Tokyo is, both crazy and yet somehow the people have adapted to it for whatever reason, which is something we actually going to talk about in the third volume. Uh, but I wanted to show that, just how grand this version of Tokyo is with the technology, with who's in it, who's trying to take control, and the dynamic of Miko and Michio. And to go back to thinking about the trope, for me, what I love to do is I love to take a stereotype and then turn it on its head.
Mm-hmm.
So like you see like, oh, this is a classic, old man young girl routine, except the old man's not exactly how he usually is portrayed, and the young girl is like the most angsty teen you have ever
Yeah,
seen. She's
absolutely.
great. I love Miko. Don't get me wrong, I would not want her to be my daughter, but I would hire her to help me in a situation. And that's another thing I do with my comics, is that I try to have very different protagonists. And in one of my previous books, Home, I defined the main character, Alicia, as the most relatable woman you've ever met. It's just that she had blue hair. With Miko, I'm like, I need to do the opposite of Alicia. Alicia is kind, she's apologetic, she's always like trying to step up for the right reasons. Miko's like, dude, if you get up, her first word in the book, this is not a spoiler, her first word in the whole series is die. Like, it's great. I loved coming up with that. Like, what would Miko say to the punks trying to hurt her in the first page? Die.
It very much is like
Cinema.
that old school, like we talked about that old man young girl dynamic of like, and it's almost like you've taken the personalities and switched them.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like the
Yeah.
dynamic of like something like an Old Man Logan when they have like
Oh, I like that.
Wolverine. It's like he's this crotchety old man who's just done with the world, and I'm like, but in this one, it's that no, it's the 16-year-old girl who's like crotchety and
Yep.
angsty and just done with everything and can't be bothered with people. And then you've got this like very sweet old man that's taking care of her who seems to be very kind, very respectable, very Uncle Iroh esque almost is probably the best comparison I can
Ooh,
kind of
I
make.
love that reference. It's just like Iroh, Michio kicks butt.
Oh
All
yeah,
right.
he
Like,
does. He absolutely
underestimate
does.
him at your own peril.
Yeah, but like even just like the first introduction, like she's so angsty and iffy, and it's like watching Iroh deal with Zuko. It really is. Like he's so nice and relatable and calm and just so chill. Like
Yeah.
even just the fact of like she constantly calls him old man, and I'm like, that's just he just accepts that's his name from her, and like they're just okay, and moving on. Doesn't get angry with her. Doesn't get, and it's like it's such a fun twist on the dynamic. And Emiko is just such a cool character as well. Though she's 100% badass. Like
Thank you.
she
And
just
that was
goes
what I was
out and
going
just
for.
I don't I don't take shit from nobody. I'm just going to go out and just
Yep.
cause utter trouble. I'm just going to go out and just whatever I need to do to get the job done. Whatever has to,
And then,
this is the job. Just what do I need to do?
yeah, and then as you've seen through the first two volumes, there are moments where she, her shell cracks, and we see
Yes.
those emotional moments, and then you see that in reverse with Michio, where the very calm old man turns into this, you know, raging warrior, and it's just like, wait, where are these characters that I just saw in a different form of the other thing? Well, they transform. It's anime. They have their mood swings.
See, that's
So
the thing, though. I completely appreciate the fact that you did that so early on to their personalities, because that's one of my things with anime when they do that with characters. I love that they'll give you this character who seems very one note, and then they'll eventually kind of show you that they're a fuller character.
yeah,
My one problem with anime is sometimes it just goes too long. Like
yeah,
I there's characters where I've been on the verge of just okay, I can't stand this character anymore. I know eventually they're going to have a turnaround, but it's taking too long. They're just becoming a utter pain. And with Miko, is like very early on, it's like a case of like yeah, she is the badass character, and then in volume 2, you start to see like no, there is another side to her. There is
yeah.
moments. It's not stuff that she lets through often. It's not stuff that happens often. Same with Old Man and being his badass self. It's like he's very much could have been just that one note character, but I appreciate that you've already started to establish like no, there's other sides to them. Because at least for me anyway, it makes it feel like they're already a little bit more fleshed out than they were. They're already a little bit more relatable in different ways rather than like sitting there hoping they're going to be relatable eventually.
Yeah. It For me, I love deep characters. There are times when one note characters are okay because of the storyline. I can think of some of them in some of my other stories.
Yeah.
But with this one, and because of the anime aesthetic of it all, I needed to have Miko and Michio be layered characters to where when the story shifts in certain directions, um, they have to shift in certain directions. And I won't spoil this, but there is a key Miko moment in couple arcs down the line where her personality will shift into something much, much different. And yet, by the time we get to that point, you'll understand why she does that shift, even though it seems like this Miko in the first arc wouldn't have done this, but this Miko would have because of what just happened. And then Misho is the same way, and that's what I love about anime is that when handled properly, you can get these massive personality shifts, and it influences everything. And sure, they might come back to the side of good or evil depending on who they are and what happens in the story, but by establishing those layers early on and the relationships that they have with one another, which is another thing I made sure to do in the first arc or first couple arcs.
Mm-hmm.
You understand by the time we get to these major shifts, like, oh yeah, this was reflected in this part of the story, and oh, this is what they were teasing in this part of the story. There are so many teases in the first two arcs alone, and then we get to the one we're working on right now, where I don't know if you checked out the Kickstarter, but
Mm-hmm.
we are going to see a little bit more of the origin of Miko and Michio working together. We're going to see
Yeah.
one of their first cases, and we don't see that in the preview pages, but we're already uh, at a key part of it, and you see how the dynamic was being forged even then. And one page that I didn't get to show you, we just completed a shot that's a reference to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh yeah.
We did the classic Dio pose, like him walking towards JoJo in the background, and but it's Miko instead of Dio. And I said, like, look, do this, but do it Tokyo style, and he just Lom completely nailed it. So yet another anime is being referenced in Tokyo Play Detectives, and I am so happy. So and as you saw in a volume 2, which is not a spoiler, we do the Akira slide because of course we
Yes.
gotta do the Akira
Of
slide.
course you do. You have to do the Akira slide.
Yeah. The moment I knew, like, and for those who don't know the Akira slide, it's the classic motorcycle slide. The moment I realized that I was gonna have my characters on a motorcycle, I'm like, we're doing the Akira slide. I will find a way to set it up. We are doing the Akira slide, and we are doing it Tokyo style. And you got to see how we got to do it in Tokyo style, and I thought
Absolutely.
it came out really, really well. So,
It
uh,
absolutely did. Hey there, Geek Collective. Did you know that Geeks Plus is also on Patreon? For as little as just $2 a month, you can also support us over on Patreon and get early access to all of our YouTube videos from Geeks Plus Comics, Geeks Plus Tabletop, and Geeks Plus Gaming, as well as a whole bunch of exclusive content specifically for our supporters over on Patreon, and early access to all the behind the scenes and ongoings with the company. So if you would like to check out all of that stuff and help support what we do here at Geeks Plus, we would greatly appreciate heading over to patreon.com/geeksplusmedia and supporting us over there. But that's all from me from now. You all have a good day, and let's get back into your video. Again, it's just another, like you saying about obviously the JoJo Bizarre Adventure like reference coming up, the Akira slide reference, like that is honestly the strong selling point of this. Is if you are a fan of anime, like this is a love letter to anime.
yeah,
This is a love letter to your fan favorite moments and your enjoyment of this genre, and it really does encapsulate that. Like even just the name, I love just the inspiration of the name coming from the Facebook meme and coming from that creation, because like that is just, I have never heard a story like that for a name of a comic being created, and I love it so much. It's amazing. But it really does sound like an old school anime franchise. Like Tokyo Blade Detectives. That sounds like something that would have came out like 80s, early 90s sort of earlier of anime, and I'm like, I'm all for that. Like it just sounds awesome. Like, yeah, this needs to be a franchise. Of course it does. I'm surprised
yeah.
it's not. It sounds like, I honestly, like if you told me that was something that existed, I'd be like, yeah, it probably does. Like, because it
And,
just sounds like something that should. It sounds like a franchise that should already be out there. So I
to
love
any
that this
anime
is,
companies out there, I'm available for hiring. I'm all for
yeah,
making this. And on the Kickstarter, actually, I hired some animators to make an anime style intro. If you didn't see the video, and
yes,
yeah, I hired a friend of mine, Omega Sparks, to do a rap song for it, Tokyo rap, and it came out really well, and it highlights all the factions, it shows off Nico Michio in action. It's just a really cool beat. So definitely go check that out when you're on the Kickstarter, everybody.
yeah,
But
absolutely. And I'll put the link for that down below as well. Everyone, if for the Kickstarter we've been mentioning, all the links for that stuff is going to be down below the video here.
yeah.
So make sure to go and click on that and go and support it. And speaking of the Kickstarter, when does the Kickstarter wrap up? When's the
Ah,
ending of it?
so we're recording this on the 19th. My Kickstarter will end on the 28th. So 28th at 7 p.m. Central Time. So we are in the like right now we are in the final 9 days of the Kickstarter. So now is the time to get your pledges in, support the comic. I promise it's gonna be a lot of fun. Arc 3 is about a serial killer that's ravaging Tokyo, which at first doesn't sound that interesting because there's a lot of killers in Tokyo right now. But this one is very, very old school. They're using a standard blade to kill people. It's bloody, it's violent, it's freaking people out because they're like, why is a person like this in Tokyo? Well, we have laser swords and technology. And why are they killing people with a knife? And that's a key factor that we're going to talk about throughout these next few issues. So it's definitely going to be interesting. We have 5 preview pages up on the Kickstarter, along with the animation video on the cover, uh, an explanation of everything. May I talk about the rewards now?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This is
Yeah,
for the Kickstarter stuff. By all means, go ahead.
yeah. So for all of you who have not read Tokyo Blade Detectives, which I'm sure is a lot of you, don't worry. We have multiple tiers to help you catch up on Tokyo. We have a digital catch up tier and we have a physical catch up tier. We also have rewards like stickers. You can get your name in a thank you page. You can actually get drawn into the comic. And the twist with this one is actually you're not just going to get drawn into the comic, you're going to be one of the dead people. Our serial killer dropping a lot of bodies in this issue. And so I was like, well, they could be the victims. And some people have already pledged to that. So there's a
That is
lot of sick
awesome.
people out there. So yeah.
That is
But
awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it's just a kid. I saw someone do that in another Kickstarter. I can't remember who did it, but they're like, "Wait, why would you do this?" Like, because people want to die in comics. Apparently, they pay for it. So I'm like, okay.
I mean, I guess it's a
So
memorable cameo as opposed to just being, hey, I'm
yes,
going to be a background character somewhere. It's like, hey, at least make me memorable. I die in the comic, you know?
exactly. And that's usually what I do is I just have them be like background characters. I put them like close to the main character so that they can be seen and such. But with this one, yeah, you get to die in a comic. So have fun. But we also have to reference all my other works, I have put every single book that I have created into the Kickstarter, either via some reward bundles or as add-ons that you can have. And I've got superhero, sci-fi, fantasy, crime noir. I have a spacefaring novel. I got Sherlock Holmes novels. I've got all sorts of great things, and you can read all about them on the Kickstarter. And then, if you like a certain genre, I probably have it for you. So check out Tokyo is obviously the main focus, but if you want that little something extra, I got you covered.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it sounds like you've kind of gone all out for the rewards for this year. There's some really awesome rewards. And that's amazing because, like you said, like you've got quite a few comics to your name at this point, quite a few comics that you've worked on and putting them all out there. So, hey, if, Tokyo Blade Detectives catches your eye, here's a whole bunch of other stuff that you're probably going to enjoy.
I've got over 50 books.
That's crazy. That is
Thank you.
insane that you've got that many. That's awesome though. And
Thank you.
are they all like self-published, self-funded through different means
Most
or
of them, most of them are yes. One of them, Five Bullets, Six Men, my crime noir, that was actually published via Source Point Press.
okay.
So yeah, great guys. Been very popular at cons for me recently. Not sure why, but hey, it sells, so what do I care? Uh,
Exactly.
exactly. So if you're interested in that one's on the Kickstarter as well. So the rest are self-published so far, via like Global Comics or Amazon. So they're out there, and I'm happy to keep cranking out my works.
That is absolutely awesome. And that's phenomenal that you've created so many and putting so much of yourself into that because it takes a lot, especially if you're the one kind of pushing it and publishing and doing all that stuff. That takes a lot to do.
It's so
And
stressful.
yeah, but like,
Like anyone who's never run a Kickstarter before, it's stressful. Like I even said to myself, foolishly, I fully accept. I should not have told myself this. I promise. I was having a really good pre-launch for Tokyo Playtex #9. I had like over 51 followers. I thought, okay, this will be like a really good launch. I'll probably get, a steady stream of people coming in every day. I had a really good first weekend, and then I had zero backers on the third day, and I'm go, well, crap. And so the next several, now ever since then, like day 4 to now, I had just been like almost stressing every day. Like, okay, gotta get these posts out, gotta find new shows to be on, gotta, you know, hustle as much as I can. And I was doing that for other ones, but this one just like really bugged me that it was already, flatlining. Like that's not fair. So I was doing like on Twitter, on Blue Sky. I got back onto Instagram. Not the best with Instagram, but I'm there. And I'm like posting constant, like, hey, where can we get a next backer? Using all the hashtags and trying to get people's attention. And it's draining. It's so draining,
yeah,
but it's so rewarding because I did get funded in like 36 hours. We're at 81 backers by the time I'm talking with you,
nice.
and thanks. I want to get to 100. Like that's why I'm really pushing. I want to get to 100, and because that's just a nice milestone number. But it's so stressful. But then once you hit that funding goal, and then once you get past it, there's always like that buffer zone. You're like, okay, I'm like, if you're like $5 over your goal, you're not happy. You're not happy because you're like someone could cancel, and then you're back to underfunded again. So
Yeah,
I'm always like, I have to wait a certain distance to truly celebrate, and we're well over that right now, and it's just rewarding that I've gotten such a response from people in the comics community, whether it be other creators or just people I've met at Comic Cons. I just had my first one over this past weekend. It went really well,
nice.
and to see so many people reacting to my books, it's like the greatest feeling in the world. I had people not just buying Tokyo, but Home. Home was a bit bestseller last weekend. Five Bullets was a bestseller. Sherlock was great. My superhero series Guardians, which is the oldest of my books, they sell every time at cons because people love superhero stories. That's
Of
great.
course, yeah.
So, but I believe in my stories. I work hard to get them out, and then I make sure that when I have the opportunity to pitch it to people, to be on shows like yours or at a Comic Con table, I try and express that I love my stories. I love everything about them, and I want them to do well. So when I pitch something like Tokyo Bay Detectives, I do it not just because I'm just trying to get more backers. No, I'm trying to get readers because I know that they'll like this. I really believe that they'll like this story
Yeah.
if they give it a chance. So
No,
that's all I'm
absolutely.
asking of you, dear listeners.
No, absolutely. And that's the thing as well, is like I think that's why I love like the indie comic space so much. Is because you find creators like you who are like, it's all a passion project. Like
Yes.
you care so passionately about your stories and care so passionately about what you're putting down on the page, and you honestly want people to see these stories because you honestly feel like you're going to enjoy them. I mean, because like even at this point, like you said, like you're well over your backer goal for Kickstarter. So like you're not here to basically say, "Oh, we desperately need to finish funding." It's like, no, you're here out of nothing but sheer passion to share this story with people, and I love it. That's what I love about the indie space, is you get these great books that people have probably never heard of and get to share them out with people and say, "Hey, this is worth checking out. This is worth going and experiencing for yourself."
Yeah. Like, trust me when I say, ladies and gentlemen, if I wasn't making comics, I'd be a lot richer, but I'd be a lot deader.
Mm-hmm.
Because like this is what I love to do. I think about, even when I'm doing a Kickstarter, I'm thinking about, okay, where's the next page of my product should coming from? What's the next book I'm gonna make? Like, what am I gonna do after this one? I just started a new comic project that I'm hoping to put on Kickstarter later this year. So maybe I'll come back on your show and pitch that one to
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
And it's a mystery miniseries, but like I've been working that one in my head for a couple of years, so I'm happy to finally get that one off the ground. But yeah, I'd be richer, but I also be like, what is my life if I didn't have these comics, if I didn't have these Comic Cons, if I didn't have these friends that I've made because of these shows? One of my best friends is named Matt Shore. He was the editor on Tokyo. We're like BFFs. We argue a lot, which proves we're BFFs.
Mm-hmm.
But I met him because of a show. We go do a lot of the same shows, and we love talking to each other and arguing about wrestling. You're wrong, Matt, about AEW. Okay, it's better. It just is. But I love him to death. And he asked me for support recently. I'm like, yeah, I got your back, buddy. And he goes, yeah, and I got yours too. And I can always count on him for help, and he can count on me for help. And I got other creators that I'm like that with, and I would be missing out on so many great relationships right now if it wasn't for the comic space.
Yeah.
So, is it stressful? Yes. Is it rewarding? Absolutely. Like, just you keep pushing. You take it one day at a time, one page at a time, one Kickstarter at a time, and then you once you get the project done, you smile and you go, okay, what's next? So that's the life I choose.
Absolutely. And I absolutely get it, and I absolutely feel what you're saying on that in that creative space. And I'm like, speaking of someone who hasn't created their own comic, but someone who basically works in content creation, it's like, this is all passion project, doing this stuff and sharing a love of comics. And I'm like, trust me, this ain't going to make me rich. That's not that's not why I do this job, because like I'm definitely not going to get rich off of it.
Yeah.
But all the good people in my life, pretty much, I know because of this. All the closest friends I've got, all the people that I connect with, all these new avenues have opened up because of doing this job and because of following the creative passions. And I think that's just the heart of the creative, is like that you're probably never going to make be a millionaire off of it, but you've got a happiness that you just would not have, and that would just, like you said, it'd be a bit more dead inside if you didn't get to do this and put this out there. And for one, I am very glad that you decided to put these stories out there. I am honestly a fan, and for everyone that's watching, I'm not just blowing smoke up his ass for this because he's a guest on the show. You all know me at this point. I'm very much I'm as subtle as a hammer. It's like I'm very straightforward with how I put stuff, and I honestly enjoyed this story. I honestly enjoyed the characters and the world that was built. And I honestly think, yeah, I definitely want to keep following this and seeing where it goes and what stories unfold, especially as you've got so many ready to go.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I'm always happy to meet a new fan and reader.
Absolutely. Well, you definitely have one here. So you also as well, just to kind of wrap us up a little bit then, I want to talk about just any future stuff, anything that we should be looking out for. Like you mentioned a possible Kickstarter coming up with stuff. Any hints or teases to that, or any teases to the future of TBD or anything like that, or we can just leave it hanging and just as a reason to get you back on the show just to talk about it in more in depth.
I could do a little teaser. I'm used to cliffhangers. It's a writer's duty, as it were. The project I was teasing before is called Crusader Mysteries. We're very, very early in the process of that one, so that Kickstarter would be much later this year. Um, think Only Murders in the Building meets The Breakfast Club and Scooby Doo. So there's your teases for you. I'm also working on the second book in my spacefaring novel series, As We Wander the Stars. Book 1 is out right now and on the Kickstarter as an add-on. We're in the editing process for book 2 right now, and I've already started working on book 3. I've already got the cover art for it. It's gorgeous. So thank you, Alex. For Tokyo, once we're done with this one, we're literally just going to go right to 10 and then 11 and then 12. So we'll probably do at least 10 and 11 this year, depending on timing. And then we'll probably finish up with the final issue in 2026, which is scary to say. We're just got to 2025, but there's always something in the works. And then I've got one of my other projects, Secrets of Science. We're working on that volume 2. We're hoping to finish that this year. Volume 1 is on the Kickstarter. But yeah, I've got stories to tell, and I've got stories I still want to make. There's a long queue in my head for all the stories I want to make. So there's always something in the works with me.
That is insane. To have that much stuff, like actually, like this is the stuff we've got ready to go onto Kickstarters and onto projects and that we're working on currently. Like that is insane, and I can't wait to see what happens with them. That's absolutely awesome.
I'll happily come back on and talk to you about it when the time comes.
Just let me know when. I'll happily have you back on. So I think that's pretty much everything that I want to cover question-wise, because I don't want to go too in-depth into anything for the story, just because I don't want to give anything away, because you can go get caught up on the Kickstarter itself. But if people want to follow you and follow you online, where can they find you, Todd?
Okay. On Twitter and Instagram, I am that symbol Guardians_comic. Just kept that handle, even though I've long since been past Guardians. I'm on Blue Sky. Just look up Todd Black. Look for the hair and the Bruv jersey. The Osprey for life. Let's see. I'm on YouTube. I have a YouTube show called Todd Talk. Have you ever heard the show Death Battle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I do previews and reviews of Death Battle. I'm a diehard fan. Love it.
Oh, so nice.
Constant joy. We could do a chat just about Death Battle episodes. I would be totally up for that. But yeah, those are the main things. I'm on Facebook. Follow my personal page, not my business page. I have not done well on keeping up with that business page. But Twitter and Blue Sky are my main places to find me. I do have an author page on Amazon where I put most of my books, and Global Comics. You can find me under Black Magic Wolf Productions or Todd Black. So my books are out there, and if you can't push the Kickstarter, it's totally fine. Spreading the word really, really helps too. I just want to get this in front of as many eyes as possible to try and get as many backers as possible, because I want people to read my stories, and I really think people will like it. So if you can help, thank you. If you can't, no worries.
Absolutely, and I'll try and put as many of those links down below as well for everyone to go and check out and go and follow Todd everywhere that he's basically available right now. And please go check out the Kickstarter for Tokyo Blade Detectives number 9, or numbers 1 to 9 if you really want to catch up, which obviously you do. Go and check it out. Go and see all the amazing rewards that are there. And if for some reason you're not able to support it right now, obviously not everybody can, share the word. And if you get the opportunity, go check out what he's got available wherever the comics are available afterwards, all the stuff that's already out there. But Todd, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for talking to me about your amazing passion projects. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I would absolutely love to have you back on the show to talk again when your next stuff is coming out. It would absolutely be great.
Make it happen.
But for us, that's us today. Hope you all have an absolutely amazing week, and remember, it's a good week to be a geek. Take care, and we'll see you all next time. Peace.